And it was really nice.
Can I find it on YouTube?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what's that?
Vietnam Veterans Day, it's also on YouTube Combiner as well. But what I'd like to do is that same kind of a thing, where the nights that saw her are telling me about what it meant to them and see her there. I mean, I think that would just be fabulous to be able to do that. You got my, I got your number, and I'm making help me. You're gonna help do this, okay?
I've never been back on something like this. I'll be glad. I'll be glad.
And if you know of any others, please. Please.
Let me check with a couple guys out there.
Yeah. If they're around, I would love to do that.
See, I did 2 tours there, so I'm not back to her number.
Well, she was there in 66 and 68. So that's when we started.
I will look to
And
make
you know
sure.
what I wanted the guys to do? That's kind of special. What I want them all to do is bring a picture of you when you were in service, but with you then, back then, and then have her sign that. Wouldn't that be fun? But here, but see, then here she is. It is the final chapter. Here you are showing her what you look like back then, and here you are now.
I was amazing and proud.
We're going to march in for the stores.
I'm definitely going to look now. Thank you. On next to me so I can pick on it. That's the only place you got to sit, right here, buddy. Get your head cut. Go down to Conference and get food for you. It's the food. Easter,
Here, we took you. You got pizza, you got that tempura, remember all that stuff?
and then we could get your haircut.
Yeah, you can get one with mama. Like, usually it's all over the place, so.
Have everybody's attention, please. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the our Veterans Day program tonight, put on by the Forest Lake VFW and the Forest Lake American Legion. If everybody could please rise and remove all non-religious headgear, and we'll have the posting of the colors combined of the American Legion and the Forest Lake VFW. Okay, please have the Cub Scouts of Pack 9731 forward, please. Join audience. They will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lift, face. Don't lift, march.
Everybody can be seated. At this time, I'd like to welcome the VFW chaplain, Dave Rovang, for our evening prayer.
I'd ask at this point, those folks that have, those men that have hats on, please remove them as I am doing. Prayer. Thank you. Today, as we honor Veterans Day, we give thanks for the courage and commitment of all those who serve our country and for the sacrifice they have made to protect our freedoms and ensure our safety. May they be honored and appreciate their service and receive the care and support they need to heal any physical or emotional wounds they may have sustained. Amen.
Now I would like to focus your attention to my right here, to our fallen soldiers, POW MIA table. Those who have served and are currently serving in uniformed services of the United States are ever mindful that the sweetness of enduring peace has always been tainted by bitterness of personal sacrifice. They are compelled to never forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, others have endured or may still be enduring the agonies of pain and internment. The tablecloth is white to show the purity of their intentions in response to their country's call of arms. The single rose in a vase signifies the blood that they have shed for our freedom. It also reminds us of the missing men and women, their loved ones and friends that keep the faith while seeking answers. The slice of lemon signifies the bitterness of their bitter fate. The Bible represents the strength gained through faith in our country, founded as one nation under God, to sustain those lost in their midst. The salt reminds us of the many countless tears of families as they wait. The candle is reminiscence of the light of hope in our hearts and to illuminate their way home. The glass is inverted. They cannot drink with us tonight. The chair is empty. They are not here. Let us not forget the sacrifices of those and their families. Let us not forget those that are still prisoners of war or missing in action. Thank you. Do we have a moment of silence? And now at this time, I'd like to introduce Jerry Peltier of the Forest Lake American Legion. He's going to lead us in the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last streaming? whose bright stripes and bright stars and the perilous flight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, those bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We'd like to take the time to acknowledge the following. If you're a family member or a person represented in one of the groups that comes follows, please rise if you wish. We'd like to acknowledge any Gold Star families that are in the room. I'd like to acknowledge any Blue Star families that are in the room. Next, we'd like to call on any current active duty. If you have a family member that's currently active. Anyone that's in the military reserves, please rise. Or if you have a family member that's in the reserves. And lastly, if you're a member of the National Guard or you have a family member that's in the National Guard. Our keynote speaker tonight, Dave Peters, I'd like to call him up. His bio is in the program. Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. I'd like to apologize. We'd like to have our introductory remarks for tonight's program by our VFW commander, Bill Prince. My apologies.
Thank you, and good evening to all of you for coming to help us serve, to help us honor all the veterans that have fought in all the wars that have been over the years. So, with the, like Nick said, with the VFW 4210, American Legion 25, we thank every one of you for coming. Very much.
Now, without further ado, I'd like to invite up our guest speaker.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Like Nick said, my name is Dave Peters. Tonight, I stand before you as a veteran. I've deployed twice, and we'll get into some of that. I also work in the community with an organization known as Operation 23-0. So, a little bit about me. Graduated high school 2003, attended MSU Mankato, which was a stellar idea. For those of you that are familiar with the reputation that MSU Mankato has, it's very true. After spending 2 years there, maybe not doing the academic portion, but doing everything else, after spending a couple of nights with law enforcement, I decided I should probably do something profitable with myself. So I joined the Marine Corps. At that time, I joined the Marine Corps Reserve with the intent of becoming a pilot. Obviously, with my contacts with law enforcement that were less than pleasant, that plan was scrapped and I enlisted. So with that, I came home from all my training. I enlisted as a military police officer, 5811. From there, I came home. I had my first son August of 2007 and was deployed 2008. So when I left my wife with a less than a year-old son. My second deployment, prior to that, when I had come home in 2008, I knew that there was something off based on that first deployment. There was just something not quite right when I got home. But I pushed through. You just kind of keep going. And we then moved on to our second deployment, Afghanistan 2011. With that being said, when I made it through my training and right before I left to fly to Afghanistan, 10 days prior to me leaving, my second son was born. You can imagine how much my wife was really a big fan of the military at this point, that with 2 kids, very young, including a 10-day-old, I was leaving for Afghanistan. So with that, I returned back April 2012, and things were okay. I was doing all right. I had gone to a Twins game, some Wild games. I was okay, and then I went to the state fair. One day at the state fair, there was a certain section of the fair that I was walking through, and it put me immediately back into Afghanistan. I was telling my brain, you're fine, you're in Minnesota, and my brain was arguing back, no, you need to clear that lady's stroller because there might be a bomb in there. You need to clear that building because there might be people in there. As I'm trying to argue with my brain, no, you're in Minnesota. So that lasted about 40 minutes at the fair, and that was a pretty lousy time. Fortunately, a friend of mine was there with his family, and his father was a Marine from Panama, and immediately recognized what I was going through. So he had the wherewithal to put my back up against the wall, get me some food, get me some water, and he stood in front of me with his back to me, protecting. That helped my brain click out of what it was in and get back to reality, as it were. So with that, that led to 2013. 2013, I was still suffering from anxiety, depression. I can honestly say I still do. However, it's not as bad. And that led to some of my first attempts at suicide and suicidal ideation, things like that. With that, it was a hopeless feeling. It was a feeling that I couldn't do anything right. And I was losing a lot of my buddies to suicide as well. And once you start seeing friends and loved ones, things like that, that have passed from suicide, as much as you hate it, it sort of becomes an option. And it became an option for me. So with that, myself and 2 others, a guardsman from Iowa and a Navy vet, got together and said, you know what? We're all not okay. Our friends are dying. We don't like that. We've lost more friends being home than we have being out overseas. Let's do something about that. Because clearly our friends in the government aren't. So, with that being said, myself and the other 2 started an organization called Operation 23-0. The gist behind that. So it sounds like a bad joke, right? 2 combat medics are sitting in a bar. However, they were watching a TV show about a group of firefighters that went essentially on a ruck. They threw packs on, they went for a hike, and they raised money for their local fire department in order to purchase some new apparatus. They're having a few drinks, they get a few in, and they go, well, why don't we do that? We could do that too and raise awareness, raise money. So they did. They called a group of us, and for the first, what we called Ruck Up for Life, was 2013, and we walked 23 miles from the Richfield VFW to the state capitol, and then from the state capitol, we ended at the Uptown VFW. The significance behind the number 23. A lot of folks are familiar with the number 22, right? The the veteran suicide, the daily veteran suicide number is commonly recorded by the VA as 22. What they don't include is one more of current active, reserve, and guard because they're still enlisted, they're still in the system, if you will, so they have support. They'll be okay. They don't include that number. We opted to. That's why we come up with the number 23. So with our first ruck in 2013, again, going those 23 miles, we had about 25 of us. And all it was just a group of guys calling each other like, hey, bet you won't do this with me. Oh, yeah? Yeah, okay. As we do. We got such a positive turnout that we said, you know what? I'll bet you we can do it bigger and better the next year. So we did it again in 2014, and we had almost 250 people show up. With that, that got a lot of attention. There were a couple Purple Heart recipients that couldn't finish the 23 miles due to their physical incapabilities, which we opted to then break it off into different chunks, and then each month we would go to their house and we would finish up the remaining miles in their own neighborhood. This became a monthly thing where we just got together every month and just went on a walk and started raising awareness, which then attracted attention from the general public, who said, that's a great idea, we love what you're doing, here's money. I want nothing to do with your money. I'm sorry. But that's what people knew how to do to help. So that forced us then to create Operation 23-0, which we use as a conduit for transparency. That allowed us to get our 501c3 status, allowed us to become a nonprofit, and then we could accept people's money. So going back to the 23, the 22 plus 1, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, those numbers come from the VA. Those numbers represent only 21 states. So when you're looking at the true numbers, they're probably a lot higher. The last estimate I've heard within the last probably 5 years, it's probably closer to 35 suicides between veterans a day. So a lot of the states that weren't included was Texas and California. They have huge veteran populations, but they have no demographic that they check the box for veterans when tracking suicide. It also doesn't include homicides, single vehicle accidents, or medically related intentional deaths such as overdose. That only qualifies suicide. So at Operation 23-0, we've expanded throughout the years. We like to use a three-prong approach, and that is raising awareness to the general public that there is a suicide issue among the veteran community. The number two is we use a peer support model. We like connecting guys and girls with guys and girls. If you are a member of the military, veteran, guard, reserve, active, doesn't matter, we all speak a very distinct language. It contains a lot of acronyms, contains a lot of numbers, but when you're talking to someone from the military, you can tell based on their speech because it is a culture. A lot of us have the same stupid haircut, the same stupid chin. It just is part of being the veteran culture. And then the third prong of which we like to approach things is resource connectivity. So for the first 18 months of the organization's inception, I would go around the state and collect resources at various levels, federal level, state level, community level, and put them into a folder. So when people called and said, hey, I've got a thing going on, I could go through my folder and say, I've got a resource for it. So that's one of the things we pride ourselves in as well. January 2015, we incorporated through the state of Minnesota as a nonprofit. And then August of 2015, we filed for the 501c. And in December of that same year, we were granted 501c3 status, which made us an official nonprofit through the IRS. Ever since then, we have been a part of hundreds of events all across the upper Midwest. Currently, we have 3 active chapters. Excuse me. One here in what we call the Twin Cities metro area. One down south, which is located in Faribault. And then one in central Minnesota in the St. Cloud area. Previously, we have had chapters in Duluth, Iowa, and Wisconsin as well. However, due to different life circumstances and different things like that, those have shut down. However, with that being said, some of our big events across the upper Midwest that we've had have been, most notably it would be our rucking event, which is we throw in a pack and we go for a walk. We've done those all over the upper Midwest to include Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, things like that. Some of our non-physical events, if that's not a thing that sticks for you, if you're not into throwing on a pack and going for a walk, which I totally get, my knees and ankles tell me that every time I do it. However, we've done events such as like cigar night, where we'll get together and just smoke a cigar. We've done family barbecues, group dinners, volunteer opportunities for folks that aren't able to complete projects. We've been able to help them with that. For instance, we had a Purple Heart recipient that was unable to complete a fence project that he had in his backyard. Fortunately, we were able to get enough people together. We worked with Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, and we put up his fence in almost a day. So just little items like that. We go on motorcycle rides. We've done concerts, fishing trips, Cedar Lake Raceway. We have a couple sprint cars that run around with our logo on it, raising awareness for us, because anywhere we can go and raise awareness, we'll do it any way we can. So, and then different holiday events. One of my things, if you will, as founder, and now they gave me a title of director, which means the guy that does stuff. One of the things that I'm proud to say is that any title holder within the organization or any volunteer is truly a volunteer. No one takes a paycheck. No one takes a cut. All that money that has been donated to us goes back into the community, minus obviously the little bit of operational cost that we need to run. But all of that money goes directly back to the veteran community. We were able to, Saturday, we were able to help sponsor a Marine Corps ball for a local Marine Corps unit. We were able to take part in that as well. So again, all across the board, we're able to help, which is fantastic. Most commonly, the financial assistance goes towards rent, goes towards automobile assistance, whether that's getting a car fixed, getting it towed somewhere. These little stressors that can seem like it's the end of the world, they pile up and it becomes so much that what is the only option left? Well, if we can start getting rid of some of those and get away from that finality of everything is so much, if we can start picking away at some of that, then that's how we see ourselves helping. We also do mobility type stuff. We've donated and fixed up donated cars and given them to veterans that need them, along with providing gift cards that can assist with living costs. So kind of coming to a close here, what can you do? What can you do to help, right? That's a question I get all the time. What can I do to help? I would say first and foremost, the first and most important thing you can do is just be there. Just be there and listen. A lot of, not only vets, but human beings as a whole, just want to be heard. They want to feel like someone is listening and paying attention to the words that are coming out of their mouth. If you read the bio that Nick so graciously embellished for me, it says I work for the Sheriff's Office, Washington County Sheriff's Office, and that's true. And one of my roles at the Sheriff's Office is I'm a crisis negotiator. I work with the SWAT team, and we deal in negotiations. One of the biggest things we find in negotiations, now I'm spreading just outside the veteran community, but it is also applicable, is people just want to feel heard. They want someone to listen to what's going on. And veterans, we're really good at holding that in. No one wants to hear our problems. No one wants to hear about what's going on. Then once you start talking about it, and someone actually listening, a little bit of that feels really good. So, with that being said, the number one thing I would recommend for folks is just being a listening ear or a shoulder to cry on. Number two would be look for the warning signs. There's a million warning signs. I could list them all. We'd be here all night. Keep an eye out for the warning signs. And when that does happen, sometimes you got to reach out. What we recommend, just from a peer support level that I've found success in, be direct. Don't be afraid of that word suicide. It's a real word. It's in the English language for a reason. But ask your friend, ask your buddy, ask your peer, ask your child, whoever it is. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about dying by suicide? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? These direct questions may, what we call, jar them into thinking, they called me on it. Now I got to admit it. Let's talk about it. I've had, I don't want to say success, I hate that word, but that's one of the most common recommendations across the board through mental health specialists, is to just be direct, okay? So with that being said, hopefully you took a little something out of that. I'll be in the back or around or somewhere. If you feel like talking, I've got contact info that I can get for you. Real quick, anybody have any quick questions? I know I threw a lot at you in a little bit here, but. Okay, well, I will turn it back over to Nick. Thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dave. At this time, I'd like to call on the Veterans Memorial Chairman and also American Legion member, Ron Miller. And we're going to have a brick dedication for our very own memorial here in Forest Lake, and he's also going to talk about our Veterans Memorial in Forest Lake here.
Yes. Thank you, Nick. So what we have here is 4 granite pavers that people, family members, and also in a couple of cases it was the person himself that purchased. We have the purchasing program for the pavers have started in 2009 when we started the Veterans Memorial downtown Lakeside Memorial Park right at the end of Broadway. If you could continue Broadway into the lake, you'd run over to Veterans Memorial before you got to the bathroom, before you got to the beach. So that's where it is. And we're going to continue selling the pavers, but there's another piece of the pie is that the upright pieces above ground are going to be a lot different, okay, than what we had planned. Because right now the pavers are all along the sidewalk, at the sidewalk, grass level. And we're going to raise them up. So, but these here are 4 that were purchased, and they are part of the 370 that we already have purchased and in the ground. They come in 2 sizes. This is the large size, 8 inches by 16 inches, $300, and then the smaller size is a 1/4 size of that. It's only 4 inches by 8 inches, and that's $150 for those. So the first one here is he's specialist for Alan Weaver, and he's deceased recently. And Mary, are you here? His wife. She lives. Okay, Mary. Yes, stand up there. Thank you, Mary. And so Mary got a hold of me and sat down with her and looked at his information, whatever, and we figured out, okay, what did he do and what should be on here. So he was a specialist 4, that's the first part there. And then he was in the Army, he was a mechanic, he was in 4th of the 68th Armor, and from 1962 to 1968 was when he was in service. And you can also include reserve time, National Guard time, whatever, but that was his active duty service, and he was assigned in Germany. So that's what we'd put on the paver, and then there's it looks like a podium down there, a stainless steel podium, and it says Veterans Memorial on the bottom part of it, right there. There's a notebook in there that's just like this one, and in there is an alphabetical listing of everybody who has a paver. So alphabetical listing of names on pavers are on the following pages, is what this page here says. And So Alan will have one in here that will say more than what is on the paper about where he was and what he did and whatever. So, so for instance, Terry Larson, sitting right over there, he has a paver and his son, and it goes right across that Terry was a Lance Corporal, a Marine, the years that he was in, and he was in Bravo 1st to the 9th in Vietnam. And the other part of it is, on the very right side, says whether they're alive or deceased. And Terry, are you alive yet? Yeah. Good. Thumbs up. He's still alive. Still alive and kicking. He's doing a lot. Okay. So that would be in there. And the other important thing is, out of those 370 pavers that are in the ground there, okay, how are you going to find your loved one if you know that they have one, or a friend or whatever? Well, you look and it says on here what size, whether it's the large size or the small size, and whether it's in the south or the center or the north, so you get an idea of where it is. Now, the other thing is that I do is I put family members or friends together also. So that's, you might see a linkage of different families and friends in there. Okay, so that's that. So Mary, thank you for purchasing that paver. The next one is Corporal Ronald G. Cobo, and he was there. He came. He doesn't weather winter here, so Memorial Day he was here, and we kind of dedicated it. The granite paver wasn't actually present yet, but Ron was here with his family. And is there anybody in the Cobos that are here tonight, by the way? Okay, I talked to them, and they're in, I don't know which southern state, but having a good time in the warm weather. Of course, this weather up here isn't bad at all, but nonetheless. Okay, Corporal Ronald G. Cobo, and he celebrated, I think it was his 90th birthday, and that's one of the reasons that they were all up here at the same time on Memorial Day. So he was in the Army. He was in the 546th Field Artillery Battalion. He was in the service from 1954 to 1956, and which was the Korean era. Okay, the next one is Sergeant Lee Noel Lewandowski, and he's passed away, and Linda, I think, is here somewhere. Where are you? Linda, thank you. Yeah, and son. Yeah. So it says Sergeant Lee Noel Lewandowski, Army. He was equipment repairman, in First Signal Group, and he was in the service from 1964 to 1967. He was in Vietnam for part of that time, and he did go into the USR, Army Reserve, USAR, I meant to say. And up to 1981, he was in the Army Reserves. Okay? And then this one here, this fellow happens to be here, and he's in the back corner unless he moved, but that's Sergeant Thomas Hagert. Tom, stand up. Thank you. And Tom is in the Army. He was in the signal unit, the 285th Trans Company, and he was in Vietnam for part of that time, and he was in from 1968 to 69, and in the signal wise, he had to have a high security clearance, and he did a bunch of secret stuff and whatever while he was over there. Okay, so that's the four, and normally it would be too cold that I wouldn't put them in the ground at this point. I'd wait until the spring, but I think I can do it tomorrow. So, yeah. So we'll get those in the ground. Tom, if you aren't busy tomorrow morning, you could help me late morning, like 10-ish or something like that, or anybody else that wants to come. Anyhow, that's that. So now, that's a continuing program, but what we have done over the last year and a half or so is looked at, okay, what do we want on the above ground pieces that makes it sharp, that anybody can look from the Highway 61 and go, oh, there's a Veterans Memorial over there. So Mark Finneman is a great design and architect guy and whatever, and he's over here. And we got our committee together and started looking at, okay, what should we have above ground? And I've got a little video there, which I'll show in a minute or so. But we came up with what a centerpiece should be, could be, whatever. And if Mark, if you want to come up and mention that, you can. No, he says no. Okay. It's on one side. One side is facing west, and it has a soldier there in a military uniform, and he's saluting, and there'll be a U.S. flag in front of him. Okay, and so he's saluting to the west, and then there's a wall there. And then to the back side of that, the other side of that wall, is his wife, who's also military. We don't want to be sexist here. She can be military also. And she's holding their daughter, and she's looking to the east over the lake. And there's a flag behind there and whatever. And there's some, significance in there. About 2 war-ravaged walls are collapsing inward, yet a core brace with emerging bald eagles hold them at bay. So there's a bald eagle on either side, the north side and the south side. The American spirit rises from within. A military family shown separated by war emerge from each panel to full dimension, displaying a sense of strength and patriotism. The American family rises above the chaos. And so, it's pretty neat. All right, so here's a picture of what the whole thing would look like with the centerpiece. And then around the center area, instead of having the pavers on the ground, they'll be raised up about a foot or foot and a half, whatever. And so the pavers will go in that area. You'll see it looks like a red area here. That's where the pavers would be. And we have enough space there for continuing on this program. So, and there's 6... we have 6 services now, though we have the Space Force also. So there's a sentinel for 6 different ones, one for each of the services, Army, Marines, and et cetera. So that's around the outside there. We are in a time where we need to find some more funds. Naturally, this takes some money. And we did go a year or so ago, or maybe that was 2 years ago. But anyway, seems like a long time ago. But anyway, we went, Mark and I went to the legislature, and we did get some money from them, legacy funds, and also some bonding funds. And we have some other, each one of these pavers, some of that is a donation, and it is fully tax deductible. You go and you pay for your paver, like the larger one, the $300 at the city hall. And then you put it on one of these forms, whichever side, the larger, the other small, and you take it to City Hall, and you do that anytime that they're open during the week, typical. And then twice a year I pick up all the orders, blanks, and then I'll call you and say, okay, tell me more about that, your veteran that you want to honor, and then we'll go ahead and finalize what should be on there and what should be in the book. So we have Paul back there from LATV, Peterson, right? Is that right, Paul? I know it was a PP, but I thought, okay, it's a PP. He made a nice video for us, and I'm going to run that quick. It only takes 2.5 minutes once I get it going here. And it shows you the, it is up going. That is great. Gotta do is go. Yeah, lights on.
Each one a testament to the service and sacrifice of those who came before us. Thanks to your continued support, these efforts have paved the way for something even greater. Now, we stand at the threshold of something truly special, a tribute like no other. Here, in this dedicated space, we envision a memorial that speaks to the courage and strength of our heroes. The central sculpture will be a focal point, surrounded by a stunning arrangement of sentinel stones, symbolizing the unwavering presence of those who have served. As you take in the view from the west, the memorial stands proudly, a powerful reminder of those who have given so much. Each detail has been carefully considered, designed to evoke deep emotion and reflection. The central raised podium is inscribed. War ravages the world around it, yet the spirit of service, love, and freedom endures. They emerge from the chaos. Atop this podium rests 2 war-damaged walls that are collapsing inward, yet a core brace with emerging bronzed eagles holds them at bay, denoting the American spirit rising from within. A military family is shown separated by war, emerging from each wall, from subtle to full-dimensioned bronzes displaying strength and patriotism. A male soldier saluting the American flag before him stands at one, while a female soldier holding a child guards his back on the other. The American family rising above the chaos. This is more than just a design. It's a message, a tribute that will endure for generations to come. Together, we will create a space that forever honors those who have given us so much. We are so close. Let's finish this mission together.
That was very good. Thank you, Paul, for doing that for us.
Thank you, Ron. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask Ron tonight. And he's also got paperwork on the table here and brochures that'll answer some stuff too if he's not available. So thank you, Ron. At this time, I'd like to call Jerry Peltier up once again, and he's going to lead us in God Bless America.
I think we really need God's blessing right now. We see some light at the end of the tunnel, and so let's ask God to continue to pour His grace into that tunnel so that the light at the other end will bring us back to where we should be. God bless America, land that we love. Stand beside her and guide her with your light that will shine from above, from the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean, whitewood foam. God bless America, our home, sweet home. God bless America, our home, sweet home. And God bless all of you and your families, and God bless America.
Thank you, Jerry. At this time, I'd like to call on the commander of the Forest Lake American Legion post for closing remarks.
Thank you, Nick. Good evening. My name is Pat Silovich, and thank you to Nick and Commander Bill, to the VFW for hosting this year's Veterans Day service. It is one that we alternate between the VFW and the Legion, and it's one of many things that we share and do together, and will continue for years and years to come. It hasn't been mentioned tonight. Veterans Day, as it is currently referred to, is celebrating a 70th birthday today. And in my remarks, I'm going to share with you why and how that came to be. On November 11th in 1918 was a celebration throughout the free world. A conflict without precedent was ending, and armistice stopping the Great War was signed. Advances in the use of artillery, chemical weapons, and machine guns led to more than 9 million military deaths and an estimated 8 million civilian deaths during the war that devastated large swaths of Europe, as well as parts of the Middle East, Africa, and the Asia-Pacific region. This was World War I. It was so horrific that many referred to it as the war to end all wars. Unfortunately, that optimism was short-lived. Only a generation later, a second war would follow, which was even deadlier than the first. In the aftermath of World War II and the Korean War, there was an all Veterans Day celebration. This occurred in Emporia, Kansas, and which was seen as the spark that lit the movement for November 11th, the day to honor every American who honorably served in our nation's military since the Revolutionary War. This advocacy paid off on October 18th, 1954, 70 years ago. President Dwight Eisenhower signed a proclamation officially changing Armistice Day to Veterans Day. Quote, Veterans Day, like the Armistice Day of before, will ever remain a day of remembrance, remembrance for those who have placed their love of God and country, their devotion to liberty and freedom, and even life itself. But also, it should be a day of rejoicing, rejoicing that American manhood and womanhood always have measured up to our responsibilities, unquote. While those responsibilities may have shifted and evolved with each subsequent generation, the love for this country is a common thread that bonds veterans from the earliest days of our nation's founding to those serving today. One responsibility that all Americans should carry is remembrance of those who have made our freedoms possible. By virtue of your attendance here, you've shown an appreciation for veterans. We thank you. The people here are veterans, friends of veterans, family of veterans, co-workers of veterans, and neighbors of veterans. It is up to us to ensure that every veteran believes that his or her service to this country is respected by their fellow Americans. There are many different tangible ways we can acknowledge their sacrifice, but the easiest one is to simply say, thank you for your service to our country. I am a lifelong retired RN, and I remember well from my days, many spent administering chemotherapy drugs, that when a patient would walk in wearing a Korean War veteran hat or Vietnam hat, I would just quickly say, hey, like your lid. And that's all it takes. So I ask you, if you're at Walmart, you're at Target, you see that veteran in that Vietnam hat, don't be afraid to say, hey, thank you for your service. I like your hat. You'd be surprised at the responses you'll get. Most often it's just a smile and a little gleam in their eye. So our message to our Americans veterans, past and present, is simple. We will never forget you. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Pat. At this time, we will have a rifle salute and tap provided by the American Legion and the VFW. Well. Everyone, please rise. Now I'd like to call up Legion Chapter Chaplain Ron Miller for the closing prayer.
Please uncover. Lord our God, we give you thanks for loving us, taking care of us, looking over us, and helping us. We thank you for all that you've done. We thank you for your blessings. We ask that you would especially take care of those who are still in harm's way in the military around the world, so that they can not only be safe, but they can also come back to their loved ones at home. We especially ask that, Lord. And we ask that you would take care of their families as their loved one is off to be helping peace in the world. And we thank you for all you've done, Lord, for us. And we thank you for all the military who have done things in the past and are doing things in the present and hopefully will continue in the future. So thank you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ron. I'd like to once again thank everyone for coming tonight and attending tonight's program. We have an evening meal that's been graciously provided by Robert's Family Funeral Home and prepared by our VFW kitchen and our auxiliary. We have a bar in the back. But be gracious if you would support them. But I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Ron and Pat, the rest of the Legion, for being a part of this celebration and presentation. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a nice night.